Well, hello everyone. I believe I am live. Nice to see a few of you there. Hope you're all doing really well. Let's have a look who is on so far. We'll just give things a few minutes for people to join in, of course. Cooking and gardening with sons. Oh, hi, how you doing? Yeah, seen you guys recently on Twitter and YouTube particularly. Spencer, good afternoon to you, Spencer. Marek, hello from Poland. Well, hello from the UK. Hello to Poland. And who else have we got? Jackie. Hello, Jackie. And Donna, thank you. My star follower. Well, one of the many, of course. Can't be too biased. Chinmay, great to see Chinmay joining from India, which is fantastic. And Kamper, hello again from, or to Indonesia, should I say. Hi all. Keith, hello again. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Linda, my very good friend in Dorset in the UK. How are you doing, Lynn? Hope you are well. Lynn's been doing some cracking photos recently of some of the sparrowhawk action in her garden, a little male, I believe, who has been terrorizing the local goldfinch population, which was, hard to see. I know that, but that's the ways of life, isn't it? Rebecca, hi, Rebecca. How are you doing? Nice to see you. And 9% native. Hello from across the pond. How are things in the States? Are you faring up well? Do you have the amounts of snow that we've had recently? Do let me know. Herefordshire Gardener, hello again. Thanks for joining in, coming back after episode 1. And yes, Virginia, of course, I forgot. I knew you were East Coast, but nice to see you all. Chinmay says he has had some good shots of the honey buzzard today. Wow, fantastic. We do get them, of course, in the UK. They're not too common, but quite often told apart from their hovering ability, if you like, to hover, a bit like a kestrel, if you know the common kestrel. They can, of course, hover, which is quite fantastic. You see a bird the size of a buzzard hovering. It's, something else. So 19% native. Yeah, snowing now. Oh, well, at least you can sort of stay inside on this snowy day, I'm sure, and enjoy and plan your garden, of course. Great time for doing that. Gardening and aquatic info, another avid follower. Thank you very much for joining. Nice to see you again. Yeah, so we'll just give things a few more minutes to warm up and a few people to join in from wherever you may be joining around the world. But while you are joining, I've set the camera up so hopefully you can see just outside here. I've got a fat feeder just there. I'm going to try and give you a bit of a live Big Garden Bird Watch. Of course, in the UK, we've got the Big Garden Bird Watch, which is hosted by the RSPB, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. And every year they do a Big Garden Bird Watch to just get an idea, a bit like the big butterfly count that we have in July and August, just to give us an idea as to what's happening in our garden settings. It's the best way of monitoring birds, of course, by getting a nationwide distribution map of all these birds and how they are faring, what things are doing well, what things are plummeting. So going to try keep your eye on this feeder here. I've got another couple of seed feeders in this, and this is my my giant buddleia, which is, as you can see, it's got some enormous trunks on it. So a cracking bush, and the house sparrow colony actually join in and join together, should I say, and they come back to the buddleia every year, which is brilliant. You know, they're almost resident, but of course, when it gets to breeding season, they then sort of disperse, which is the natural thing. And then birds obviously congregate in the autumn and winter months. So you might get a lot of more sort of congregations of tit flocks in the autumn and winter, of course. You know, blue tits, great tits, long-tailed tits, they all flock together for security and, of course, to find food. So, keep your eye on that feeder over there. Like I say, hopefully the resident house sparrows, as I say, they've been on it most of the morning and into the afternoon. So, yeah, nice to give you some footage of those, albeit very small. Hopefully, you will get a chance to see them. So let's just have a quick catch up. I think we're almost there at the moment. Hello, everybody. Grey Cat Blue. Hello to France. I believe you're in Brittany, from what I can recall. You've seen a female HandHarrier. Wow, circling my garden here, but yes, Brittany. Yeah, HandHarrier. My God, it's a few years since I've seen those. I used to see them on the fens in Lincolnshire. Of course, in the winter time, they'll come down off the moors and onto the sort of fenland to hunt and to just recuperate after the breeding season, of course. So yeah, very nice. Was it a male? If it was male, of course, they've got the lovely slate grey back with the gorgeous pointy black tips on the end of the wings. Female, quite brown in colour, of course, but very nice bird. I won't go into the politics around hen harriers and the gorse moors today, because I'm sure you could all do with a bit of cheering up rather than getting fed up. So yes, nice spot there. Spencer, hello again. Yes, Herefordshire Garden. Yeah, don't forget to do your bird watch, although you can do it live, of course, if you've got a phone near a window. Krishna, hello. Now, Krishna has joined from India, and stay tuned, because towards the end of the session, I will be giving you guys a big announcement as to what you can expect moving forwards with Wild Your Garden Live. And yeah, a lot of good stuff going to happen this year, I can assure you that. So yeah, keep tuned for that one. Yeah, love from India. Nice to see you, Tracy. Hello, Tracy. Just finishing our RSPB count. Yeah, so many people across the UK just doing their big bird counts now, which is great. We'll come on to that a bit more in a moment. Just want to make sure everybody is here and tuned in. Clive, hello again. Nice to see you, Clive. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, great. Thanks for joining. That's brilliant to see so many people coming back just after episode 1, of course, which was a couple of weeks ago now. And the whole idea is that Wild Your Garden Live will be every 2 weeks. So plan it in your diaries, and we can all make a date. Come on, we can't go out anywhere. We can't go to the shops. Well, we can go to the shops. We can't go to the restaurants. So let's all make a date right now, February the 14th. I'll see you there. Why not? Yeah, so February the 14th, of course, is going to be the next live episode. So make a note of that in your diaries, which will be great to see you all again. And again, I'll have got a bit of an update as to what will be happening in that episode. Yeah, let's have a look. So Stephen Fogg, hi. How are you, Stephen? Hope you are well. I'm just going to try and make my way down the chat a bit. There we go. Okay. Concrete 2010. Hi from the Netherlands. Hello. Nice to see you. Yeah, I've had a couple of people message me from the Netherlands over the last few days. So yeah, nice to see the word is spreading. Amid's got a question from India. I shall come on to that in a moment, Amid. Mark, hi. Nice to see you, Mark. Mark, a regular commenter on the channel, which is fantastic. Eric's Wildlife Garden. Hello again from Sweden. Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day to come and see us all on here, and yeah, hopefully learn a few tips. I will do my very best over the course of the next hour to put some inspiration into you all, hopefully. Yeah, so I'll come on to your question in a second. Marek again. Yes. Tracy, yeah, get the chocolates in. Yeah, just chocolates or flowers as well. I bought some flowers in, look, just for you all. Bit of a treat. Just to spruce up the kitchen a little bit, give you all a bit of cheer this very grim time of year. It's been quite grey here today. But yeah, so I think we're about there. I think we've sort of plateaued off around 40 of you. So thank you so much. This is brilliant. Far more than I could expect of you to join and give up your time on a Sunday to join the community, of course, and talk everything wildlife garden and everything wildlife. And it's just so fantastic to see so many people returning again. And of course, do spread the word. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are looking for advice and tips on how they can attract wildlife to their own garden. And so it's really good to see people returning. And like I say, I would welcome more people on here. And of course, as the channel grows, you know, some of you may dip in and out. I understand you can't all make every, you know, other Sunday. We've all got commitments. We've all got lives outside of COVID, of course. But I shall be here and do my very best to entertain you all and give you as much advice as possible. So, yeah, so a bit of a roundup, I suppose. Firstly, what have I been doing in the last 2 weeks since you guys joined me last time? Mostly working from home still. Actually, my official first big job of the year, shall we say, is starting on Wednesday in North London, where I have a complete garden makeover to do, which I'm really looking forward to. So there's everything going in there. There'll be a pond, a mini meadow. This isn't a huge garden, by the way. Remember, this is suburban London, it's space is a premium. So this garden's probably only about maybe 15 to 20 meters by about 5 meters wide, 6 meters wide. So kind of average garden size for the UK, of course. And I will be taking out some of the existing features, but of course retaining what I can in terms of trees and hedge lines. But a lot going into the garden. There's a pond, a mini meadow, nectar borders for birds and bees. There is going to be some seating areas, some oak work, timber work, pergolas, lots of native tree and shrub planting. So stay tuned on that one. I am, of course, going to be filming that with my GoPros and doing some time lapses. And of course, I'll keep you updated on the regular channels. Those of you that are joining me for the first time, maybe you've stumbled across the channel by chance, then obviously I am on Twitter and Instagram as well as Joel Ashton. And so do join me on there, where of course I will be posting more regularly than YouTube. Obviously, the videos that are on the channel take me some time to edit, and hopefully plenty of you will have now seen the cuckoo rescue that I uploaded a couple of weeks ago, which was quite an emotional process, I'm not going to lie. If you haven't seen that, do check it out. It's worth a watch, I think. I can't imagine I will ever be meeting anybody or indeed carrying out that same act ever again with a cuckoo. So it's worth a watch, I promise you, and get the hankies ready for the ending. But a nice little story there. So but other than that, I've been mostly working from home, just working on plans, drawings for other people, quotes, that sort of thing, planning the year out, and of course avoiding the horrific weather we've had. I know in Poland, Marek's, they've had a lot of snow. Obviously, we've got Virginia. The guys on the East Coast over there are having a lot of snow. So, a lot of snow knocking around this year. Obviously, something we don't really get much more in the UK, but it's good in a way because a lot of seeds, of course, need that cold snap to break down the husk of the seeds. I'm talking wildflowers, tree seeds, everything like that. They need a cold snap to really break down things, particularly like yellow apple. If you're looking to put some of that in a meadow, then of course they do need some cold weather to break down this husk so they can germinate. So speaking of germination, I'm just going to introduce you now to my little friend. Now, this is something that I collected with my kids back in October time when they're freshly falling off the trees, and I put some in a pot, 6 in a pot, and unfortunately only 3 have survived. The squirrel found the other 3. However, who out there can tell me what this cracking little plant or tree is? Any takers on that one? I'll show you the leaf. So there is a leaf for any of you out there. I'm sure most of you will get this. It's a cracking plant. Let's see if anyone's dropped on the chat yet. Oh yeah, you've all got it. It's easy, isn't it? It's an oak. And so I planted 6 of these, as I say, in pots. Just literally push them an inch under into the compost back in November time, and of course here we go. In fact, you might be able to just see the top of the acorn just there, which of course is where this shoot has germinated from. So brilliant. And I've got 3 of these now growing in the kitchen. I probably won't leave them in the kitchen too much longer. I'm just going to let them sort of lie low until the warmth of the spring kicks in a little bit, just to make sure the frost, because obviously this time of year, with them being germinated inside, if you're growing any seedlings, just get them used to the outside gently. Don't put them straight outside there, because a short sharp frost will absolutely do for the leaves. And the winter flowering jasmine on the side of the house has actually had a bit of a battering this year. All the leaves are sort of crisped up, sort of semi-evergreen anyway, but they'll send more out, of course. But just thought I would show you that, and a nice little story. So when you can, in the autumn, if you've got any acorns lying around that haven't been nibbled by any squirrels or mice or anything, then do take a few acorns, put them in a pot. I've done it a few times, but it's just so great. I mean, you can see the growth on that. It's 18 inches tall already, and that's within a couple of months. But of course, that's with it being inside. So anyway, that's a nice little story for you. I have got a bit of show and tell as well, which I'll come on to in a little while. So a couple of other things that I will be showing you, which hopefully 1 or 2 of you will get. So, shall we have a go at some of your questions? And do let me know what you've been up to, by the way, as well. In in the last couple of weeks since the first episode. Hopefully, you've been thinking about the garden. And later on in the show, I'll be coming on to what you can be doing this time of year to encourage wildlife. Of course, even though it's January, almost February now, February tomorrow, of course, you can still be planning your garden. There's a lot you can be doing. So I'll come on to a few pointers about that in a little while. So if I just scroll back up, I don't think there are too many questions before Eric's from Sweden. So thank you for doing this again. Absolute pleasure, Eric. It's just great to see so many people join in. I plan to grow nasturtiums for white butterflies this year. Any recommendations on varieties, location, soil composition, or any other tips? Nasturtiums, obviously, yes. I mean, I can remember nasturtiums from my mum growing them when I was a kid, and just seeing them littered with small white. Of course, in the UK, I believe you'll get the small white and green vein white in Sweden, Eric, as well, and the large white, I believe, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yes, so small white, large white, and green vein white will, of course, all lay the eggs on nasturtium leaves, and often you can just look under the underside of the leaf and see these little white dots if it's small white or green vein white. And the difference to tell them apart from large white eggs is the large whites they are bright yellow eggs actually, and they're laid in clusters. I think the females can lay up to 100, 150 in a cluster, and that's purely for protection. Well, sort of, safeguarding themselves in numbers, basically, because a lot of them get parasitized, unfortunately, by parasitic wasp, which I won't go into now because I've done my own surveys and studies on the percentage rate. I won't bore you or depress you with that now. But so that is something you can do. Nasturtiums is a really good one. Of course, they'll grow very well inside from seedlings. I wouldn't worry too much about the particular varieties, Eric. You'll be fine. Most of them will attract the whites themselves, and just put them, in on the windowsill if you like, with some compost in, and they will just start to germinate. And then take them outside, obviously, when things warm up a little bit. So hope that answers that one. Do let me know if not. Marek said about maybe he needs to watch one of the last videos about what happens when one of the big ponds designed by you gets over fertile. How do you clean? Yes, so obviously fertility is an issue, and for those of you that have seen my recent large natural pond creation video that I posted a few days ago, you will have seen the amount of leaf litter that built up to I'm sort of talking 18 inches to 2 feet of effectively slop in the bottom of that wildlife pond. And of course, that's not going to do any favors to the water soldiers or the oxygenating plants that, of course, are dying down at the bottom of that pond. Once they get a layer of leaf litter over them, it can be quite detrimental to them. So the best thing to do, of course, if you don't manage to catch the leaves as they're falling in, and that's going to be the main reason for increasing fertility or the nutritional value of the pond water itself. Or, I mean, it might be the only other way would be if, of course, you've got some nitrate runoff from a field, for example. So if the farmers near you have been fertilizing the fields, that may be a slight issue, but nothing too much. I wouldn't worry about. And hopefully you've got a bit of a buffer, either of a hedge or something that the water can just sort of drain straight into. But yeah, so if the leaves are falling into a pond, this is going to be the biggest problem that you're going to face, which of course is going to be overcome by either removing those leaves as they fall in, or putting a net over beforehand if you're prepared enough, like on a wooden frame with a mesh, a plastic mesh or something, or a fabric mesh just over the top, just to collect those leaves while the leaves are falling before you can then take that off again. And I will cover this in a video to come shortly. I've filmed it, I just haven't had time to edit it yet. So yes, leaf litter is going to be your biggest problem. So I would just try and get the leaves out as best you can on that side of things. What else is next? Let's have a look. Stephen, the hornwort in my preformed pond has turned to mush over the winter. Shall I pull it all out and compost it, or will it sprout again in the spring? Interesting, Stephen. I'd be keen to see a photo of that. Normally, it just obviously dies down and sort of goes to, well, almost nothingness, but then does come back up again in the spring. So I would wait till April anyway. Oxygenating plants aren't going to be doing much in April or until April. That's usually mid or late April in the UK, depending on where you are, of course. until the sort of later weeks of April, when they will start obviously rising up from the bottom again. And you'll see the water start bubbling as they start producing some oxygen. So, yeah, do get in touch and send me a picture of that, Stephen. I'll be happy to have a look at that for you. But as I say, I wouldn't worry yet now that they're not going to be doing much for the next couple of months. So you've got plenty of time to assess the situation. Had a similar problem with my pond, actually. Had a few things drop in, leaves drop in. Didn't get to clearing it in time last year. And it was a bit detrimental to the water. It went a bit black and I had to replace the hormone. But, of course, it's not the end of the world if you can get the leaves out in time before they start rotting down too much. Spencer said, would you recommend planting native snowdrops, and would you say they are a species that only attracts insects? Absolutely, yeah. I mean, of course, snowdrops are a vital early source of nectar. And mine are only just starting to form the flower buds on top of the stems at the moment. Some of them, of course, are already out, and I've been posting on Instagram and Twitter about some that I've seen, it must be 2 or 3 weeks ago now in Surrey, which, of course, is South England, so a little bit warmer. But even where I am in the south now, mine are only just starting to rear their heads. So still early days for snowdrops. But, yeah, certainly they are a good one for the insects, definitely. Would highly recommend them. Curio Critters. I didn't see that. Hi, how are you doing, Javed? So Javed's joining us from India again. Nice to see you. Clive has said, need this weather to get better so that I can get on with my new pond build. Absolutely, Clive. I've got about 13 on the go at the moment, waiting for me to start. But trying to get cracking with a pond when it's like this is, nonsensical, really. I've noticed lots of newts have arrived and frogs on my other ponds early, but mild at the moment, so it's understanding. Yeah, so, let me know. I mean, I had a friend of mine, Alan, up in Hull in Yorkshire. He said he's had newt activity already, the earliest he's ever seen it. Lynn's on the chat somewhere, was tweeting the other day about, newts being out in the pond already. And, it is early. It's very early. And normally I would expect to see the frogs before the newts. But, of course, if you get a milder day, there's nothing to say they won't come out of hibernation and start showing some interest in the water or a pond itself again. So, it'd be interesting to see if anybody else have seen any newts and frogs coming out. I've not seen any yet, but that's not to say I haven't missed them. David Rollinson. Hi, David. Hi, Joel. Have you ever had to contend with a pond liner ballooning after you've installed it? If so, how do you rectify it? I did, David. Actually, I had a job in Norfolk where I did a pond, and it was absolutely fine for about 18 months. And the customer rang me up and said, you're not going to believe this, but there's a balloon in the middle of the pond and the liner is near the surface of the water. So I was sort of scratching my head thinking, well, it's been so long, you could almost understand it if it just happened to, because sometimes when you're filling up particularly a bigger water body, and I've had it before where obviously once you dig a pond, a reasonable way down into the ground, you can sometimes, of course, meet the natural water table, the level of the water where it is naturally found underground. And the problem there is then obviously you are contending while you're in the process of fleecing and lining your pond, you've then got water coming in and seeping into the hole you're trying to fill. So if you don't get the hose on quick enough, you can find that the water level underneath the liner actually rises up faster than the rate at which you can put the new water in, and that can cause a few issues. The way to overcome that is just to really get the water in as fast as you can, so that there's more ground pressure from above than there is rising from below, and that will just send the water elsewhere. I've had it once or twice, but whatever you do, don't go to sticking a fork in the middle and trying to drain it that way. That won't do you any favors at all. I hope that helps on that one, David. And as I say, it's just a case of getting what you can do as well, of course, is just get some weight in there. So the way I do my ponds, if you haven't seen any of my videos, I do a fleece, then a liner, then a fleece on top, and then put pour subsoils from the bottom right the way out to the sides, which of course makes a really nice natural finish for all the plants to grow and all the wildlife to adapt to these water bodies. So that's the best way of doing it. But of course, by adding that subsoil, you are adding weight to the liner as well, so you're also combating that groundwater as well, so that can help. And if not, put some big rocks and boulders in the middle as well if you're really stuck. or of course wait until later in the year when you could try and address the situation in June, July, when naturally the water table is going to drop somewhat, obviously with it being a drier time of year. So yeah, hopefully that one helps with that, David. Tracy, the cookie film was fabulous. Thank you, Tracy. Yes, it was quite an emotional journey. It was a 90% native. Yeah, no, I'm glad you liked that. It was fantastic journey to go on. I'm just so pleased I could share it with you all. So, grey cap blue, are beautiful pond liners vulnerable to moles? What is your experience of rural ponds with high mole population? I can't say I've ever worked in a garden that's had serious mole issues. I have, of course, seen them, and I can imagine that they can pose a bit of a problem with anybody out there. Mind you, most of the people watching this won't be too worried about perfectly mown lawns with stripes in and that sort of thing. So, nice to see the moles, but obviously I appreciate they may cause a few issues. I've never personally had that problem. My only thought would be that they will move on. Of course, they don't tend to stay in one spot for too long. So, maybe they will just sort of move on and leave you be. Fingers crossed. Fingers and toes crossed for you on that one. Yes, so gardening question for I'm glad all gardening lover YouTuber joining around the world. Yes, no, it's brilliant, isn't it? And that's the whole purpose of this channel, is to create a community, like we said, to just bring everybody together. We're all wildlife lovers here, and I think it's really nice to be able to share some experiences with you guys. Obviously, I think it's fantastic, and of course, I want to hear from you as well, what you've been doing in your own garden, and hopefully you'll be able to send me some pictures after this or whenever. That is fantastic. Then Rebecca said, I'm using clover and selfield for a wildflower path that is a bit shady. Do you recommend any other low-growing plants that will tolerate being stepped on and being cut back sometimes? Well, if you want no other plants in your garden, Rebecca, I would say wild strawberry. It will take over your garden, job done. No, it does do really well in shady conditions. So, a good one. And it will get used to being mown quite short, of course. Birdsfoot Truffle, my all-time favourite wildflower, for those of you that know me, will, of course, have, a certain tolerance of shade. It won't want it too shady, but if it's not massively shady, then that will do okay on a sort of a semi-regular mowing, if you like. I'd just leave your mowing to 2 or 3 inches if you can, obviously, to allow them to flower, which would be most beneficial, of course, for the bees and the insects visiting. And of course they're used to it in the wild. They're used to cattle and sheep roaming over them and stamping over them, so that's fine. Yeah, so you're all guest oak, which is fantastic. Let's have a look. Keith said he planted some acorns, but they germinated and are evergreen species. Okay, so maybe the home oak. It's the only evergreen oak that we have that I can think of over here, Keith, which is a nice tree in its own right. S&P tablet. Hi, Joel. I want to grow wildflower on front lawn. I see a product called seed balls. Have you heard of these? And do they work? Thanks, Shane. Yeah, they do work, Shane. Yeah, I mean, it's all about the ground preparation and the timing, of course, when you're sowing seeds. So the best way, the only issue you've got with trying to establish in an existing lawn is the grass has already got its roots down. So if you're planting little plants, mini plugs, if you like, that they can struggle in an existing lawn, particularly if it's a vigorous grass species that is the majority of the grass in the lawn. So what I tend to do, and I do it quite a lot, is when you don't want to obviously strip everything off and relay it or returf it or replant it, what you can actually do is buy plants. I would buy bigger plants, like a 9 centimetre, 10 centimetre pot, which is going to be a lot healthier plant, a lot stronger root in it, and so that's going to do a lot better at competing with the existing grasses rather than a small plug with a little root system that's obviously easier to get swamped out. So if you're going to look to establish seed in an existing lawn, I would strongly recommend, depends on the area, of course. Once you get to big areas, 100, 200 square meters, it can be very costly to then plant those plants, and maybe at 4 to 5 a square meter, something like that. But hopefully, if it's not too big a lawn, you can just about stomach the cost of that. And then, of course, those plants will stand a much better chance rather than sowing seed. You can sow seed, but if you're going to do that, I would recommend sowing yellow rattle through the area first and just give it a season for that to work through to create some pockets. And yellow rattle, for those of you that don't know, is, of course, a parasitic annual wildflower that lives off the roots of other grasses. And some plants as well. So, but the majority of the time, it will live off the host plant, which of course are grasses. So it weakens those grasses, and basically in its wake then leaves pockets of sort of barer ground, which you can then sow wildflowers into. And if you're going to do that, I would probably recommend an autumn sowing, so somewhere around September, October time, once the cooler weather hits. That's probably the best time I've found and experienced. So, yeah, hope that helps on that one, Shane. Yeah, Krishna, it was an acorn, absolutely right. Now it is a beacorn, very true. Grey cat blue again. Deer come into my garden to eat acorns. Oaks grow like weeds here. Well, look at you, yeah. Yeah, and of course, deer in the wider countryside can be a bit of a problem because, of course, they go around eating all the fresh vegetation. So where there are an extensive amount of deer, you can, of course, get this kind of monoculture of, you know, sort of low-growing brambles and things where none of these saplings have chance to shoot up through the leaf litter, you know, so oaks, hazel, silver birch, rowan trees, holly, that sort of thing, because they're all eaten. Obviously, this lovely fresh vegetation is quite a nice little snack for a deer. And of course, you get a herd of 20, 30 deer. They can demolish a lot of these in a day. So you tend to find where you have high deer populations, the canopy of the trees are at a certain height and there's very little understory, which of course is to the detriment of our warbler species. So things such as blackcaps, chiffchaffs, willow warblers, that sort of thing, which are low down nesting birds, ground nesting birds almost, which will want to be in dense scrub. And of course, if there aren't the shrubs there to provide that dense scrub and that dense habitat, then of course it becomes a bit of monoculture. So I'm going off at a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, a bit of history into deer grazing and the effects it can have on the wider countryside. Spencer, I believe oak supports over 300 species of animal and insect. That's amazing if it is true. Absolutely, they do. Yeah, no, they are incredible, the oak trees, as to what they can, you know, what they can provide life for, if you like, or habitat for. Quite phenomenal. And of course, even butterflies. So the purple hair streak we find in the UK and in a lot of Europe will, of course, lay its eggs on the terminal buds. Now is a great time of year. I do enjoy, not that I've had time much this year, but I do enjoy this time of year going around and inspecting the lower buds on, because I've got nothing better to do, on the south side of an oak tree where it's nice and warm. This time of year, if you can find any buds that are in a group of 3 or 4, look on the ends and look for some little sort of mini white/silvery, almost flat, like flying saucers, if you like. And those are the eggs of the purple hair streak butterfly. Really massively under-recorded species, I think, because they spend most of their time when they do hatch out in July flying up around the treetops of these, or flying down the tops of these oak trees, mostly living off honeydew and ash as well. They like to have ash nearby to go and get the dew off those. So, yeah, not a very often seen butterfly, although my sister-in-law did have one come down to her patio. And she's not exactly a lepidopterist. She's learning, I'm teaching her. But she actually saw one on the patio, sent me a photo, wings open, fabulous purple, like sheen on top. And, you know, typical, you know, sort of question mark with it of, I've just seen this, what is it? You know, and I'm thinking, it's an open wing shot of a purple hair streak. I've been trying about 15 years to get one of them, you know. So it was really, really brilliant to see that. But yeah, they do come down to the ground to feed if you can entice them onto some wildflowers, of course, if you've got oak trees nearby or on the edge of your garden. So July time, early July, look up to the tops of oak trees. If you see 2 or 3 little butterflies flying around together, I'll almost guarantee you it's a purple hair streak. Yeah, cracking little butterfly. They are indeed. Sorry, a bit distracted there. Slight sidetrack. Let's have a look. What else has been going on? Tracy has said, which wildflower would you never be without when planting a wildlife garden? I think I've probably answered that already, Tracy, but I think it would have to be the bird's foot trefoil, just because it's so versatile. I mean, you can plant it in clay, you can plant it in sand, you can plant it in limestone. It'll grow in cracks in a pavement. There you go. Look at that. Bit of live feeding action there for you from one house sparrow. There you go. I have been doing my count today, by the way, and I've had quite a few birds in the garden. There's been a number of goldfinches, and nearly always have a charm of goldfinches down at this time of year, and they are absolutely living on. Sorry about the rustling. If any of you can see, this is the best. This is one of the things I get asked a lot of. And this is the best food in my eyes for feeding birds. If you were to pick one food, and it is this stuff, which if you can see that, and that is sunflower hearts, which is loved by so many birds. You'll get chaffinches eating it, all your doves, your collared doves, wood pigeons, goldfinches, house sparrows, blue tits, great tits. You know, everything out there will eat sunflower hearts, but particularly goldfinches. So I've ordered a big 25-kilo sack recently, and they are eating me out of house and home. I get through a feeder about this big in about, well, 2 days, 3 days. So yeah, it's quite expensive feeding the birds if you're not careful, but very, very rewarding, of course, to see them coming in and enjoying the garden. So yeah, apart from the house sparrows, I've had nice goldfinch numbers, usually 5 or 6 to 7 in the garden, and greenfinches. Oh man, I've been blown away by greenfinches this year. It's been almost, I can't even remember how long since I've seen a greenfinch. And of course, this time of year now, they're looking for food. They're traveling around a bit more. And I used to see them when I was living at home 15 years ago. 15, 20 years ago. There used to be 3, 4, on the feeders, on the sunflower seeds, which they do enjoy, actually. They're one of the birds that does enjoy a sunflower husk. You'll see them. Their sort of beak sort of does that, and just sort of, breaks away the black shell of a sunflower seed, and then obviously that drops to the floor and they eat the sunflower heart, which of course these are. So yeah, they're really, really fantastic to see in the garden, and there was even, I think, 3 or 4 the other day, so brilliant to see them coming back. And of course they've been massively hit by the disease that has been going around, the same as the chaffinches. I can never remember how to pronounce it. It begins with T. Some of you might know out there. Let me just scroll the chat down a bit. Yeah, so I think, some of you might know that, but it's been a disease that has just rampaged through the country over the last 15 years and really, really decimated the chaffinch and the greenfinch populations. And the best way you can combat it, if you are feeding the birds, please, please, please get your feeders on a weekly basis and just put some hot soapy water through them. The reason this disease came about was because of the, if you leave seed, you've all seen it, we've all been guilty of it, seed or peanuts at the bottom of a feeder, and that just goes rotten over time. And then, of course, the birds are trying to eat around this, and yeah, it's not very good. So please, if you are out there, just try and clean your feeders on a regular basis if you're feeding the birds, because it does have a detrimental effect, as I'm sure most of you know. Let's have a look at what else has been going on. So Tracy, yes, birdsfoot truffle, my absolute favourite wildflower, great for bees, butterflies, just so many insects. And of course, things like the moss, 6-spot bonnet moss will lay on it as a larval food plant. So will the common blue butterfly. And of course, as I say, they are a brilliant resource for a nectar as well. So birdsfoot truffle, absolutely. How will permaculture and wildlife gardening work out together? Well, absolutely. I think you can combine the two, and I think growing your own sort of vegetables and food can obviously attract a whole host of wildlife, particularly to the dismay of many many gardeners, should I say. You wildlife patriots out there will probably not be too worried about the odd small white or cabbage white coming to some of your prized broccoli or cauliflowers or Brussels sprouts or cabbages, all those sort of brassicas. They're obviously fantastic for our white species, which are, even they're declining from the countryside, I think, because of the use of pesticides, and agriculture now is just so intensified, so it's more intensified, that obviously these practices are having a big bad impact. And of course, absolutely horrific to see the the ban lifted on some of the neonicotinoid, the word I'm trying to say, the chemicals that have been allowed to be used again in farming, which I've seen recently. So it's such a shame to see after that was banned a little while ago. So yeah, it's going to be a bad thing for the bees, particularly, and a lot of the pollinators. But yeah. Anyway, moving on to happy things. I think, can you just make out? It's a female blackbird. Yeah, just having a sit on the lower branch of that lovely curving part of the buddleia. There's a few things going on in the background. Usually the house sparrows are a lot more prevalent. You might just be able to hear the robin singing away behind me, which is very nice. Just about, probably. Depends how good the speakers on this are. Yeah, anyway. There is robin there, I promise you. Yes, so hopefully, yeah, absolutely, permaculture with wildlife gardening should go hand in hand. We can all have a home. I actually grew 10 broccoli plants. This is no word of lie. Sorry, 10 Brussels sprout plants once. And over the course of a summer, they were home to no less, and I promise you this, 1,000 large white caterpillars. And actually, they stripped them so bare that I then had to move the caterpillars all to garlic mustard. And, you know, of course, then I'm thinking, oh, God, this is going to be less food for the orange tips, you know, and all the caterpillars for them. Anyway, I had to move them down the bottom of the garden. Long story short, so yeah, that was a fun few journeys up and down the garden. UK amphibians. Do you know any early in the year flowering pond plants? Well, the first one that springs to mind is marsh marigold, or the king cup. Some of you may know. Absolutely brilliant plant. Got this bright yellow, massive flower. Really good for butterflies. I've had peacocks on it. Obviously, first emerging from hibernation. Lots of other insects on it as well. So yeah, marsh marigold, really good one. Also, cuckoo flower when you get to April, and ragged robin. Cuckoo flower, obviously, really good larval food plant for the orange tip butterfly. So my favourite butterfly, for those of you that don't know. I'm sporting the badge again, as you can see. Those of you that have been to any of my talks will see me wearing two of my favourite UK butterflies, the orange tip and the small copper. My long-term dream is to work with a few professionals around the country to reintroduce the large copper to the eastern parts of the UK, where it did have its last stronghold. But that's, yeah, job for another day. I've got enough to do at the moment. Let's have a look what's been going on. Oh, there's the female blackbird again. I think she's just, you can't see now. She's just, and the male. And a third bird as well. Nice to see. Another female. Yeah, quite a few blackbirds. And of course, a lot of blackbirds do come in. Oh, and the squirrel. Look at that. Live on camera. There you go. For those of you that just saw it, it ran across the chair. If you didn't see it, then watch this back afterwards. I promise you, there was the squirrel. Probably the same flipping one that had my acorns, but there you go. You can't have it all. Nature's got to eat as well. Okay. Wow, a bit of a manic couple of minutes there for you. All from a slight sliver. I'm going to end up having to do this outside, I think, aren't I? So that you guys can keep up with what's going on in the garden. Yeah, so I will be later on in the year as well. I'll be doing some tours of the garden. It's not a huge garden, but it's got a little mini wildlife pond, a mini meadow, all my native trees and shrubs and herbaceous borders for the insects, all kinds of stuff going on. So yeah, I will be sure to do some update videos on the garden as we move into the year, and it's looking a little less tired than it's currently looking. Let's have a look. So Caroline Flux has said, I'm planning a wildlife pond in my small west-facing garden. The garden has a 4 or 5 degree slope towards the house. Any tips on how to shape on a slope and what native water plants will do well? Blackbird again. Yes. So if you're building on a slope, of course you can build ponds on a slope. You just have to bank up one side, or you can, of course, dig into the bank on the steeper side. So there's two ways. You can build up on the lower side or dig in on the bank side. So that shouldn't be an issue at all. I've got one to do like that coming up. As for pond plants, well, how long have you got? Genuine reaction to that is, without me boring you all with all the names, I suppose I could get a little plug in. For those of you that don't know, here is the book that I wrote on everything to do with gardening for wildlife, and this has all the sorts of. I might actually do a few episodes where I'll sort of read some bits from it, but gives you an idea of the sort of book. How apt is that? That's actually greater bird's-foot truffle, I believe. No, it's not. It's horseshoe vetch. Apologies, my mistake. Just from a distance there, I thought it was greater bird's-foot truffle. Anyway, there's lots of things in the book which, of course, will give you some ideas. There's some back boxes that I put up, and there's all sorts of things, how to make cornfield annual meadows, all that sort of stuff. But the point I was going to make was in the back of the book, if you want to see the very, very extensive plant lists, this is my Bible, effectively. I do reference this a lot for when I'm planning gardens because, of course, I forget so many plants. And it's everything from, you've got wildlife ponds here, you've got floating aquatic plants, we've got grasses, reeds, rushes and sedges, marginal aquatic plants, oxygenating plants, damp-loving plants, look at all these, and then nectar borders, and so on and so on. So if you can get hold of a copy of that, it's well worth a read, I think. Hopefully that's not just a plug, but generally I think it will help a lot of people. It's a how-to as well, so it shows you how to make a meadow, how to make a wildlife pond, and everything else. So without going through all the plants that I would recommend for that, that's probably the best thing. Or get in touch afterwards, and I'm happy to recommend a few if you need a few pointers, of course. UK amphibians. Oh, blackbird's back again on the chat. Do you? Oh, here we go. Curio Critters, love your passion for natural history. Thank you very much. Scouting through. Newts are active under the ice here, UK amphibians. Cool, yeah. Well, crikey. Can they get out? Hopefully they can. If your pond does freeze over and you've got newts in them, don't crack the ice because it can damage the hearing of any frogs and newts that are in there. So if you just pour some warm water, not boiling, of course, but warm water on the surface just to melt the ice, then obviously that just leaves them a bit of an access in and out. Andy, hi, sorry I'm late. Well, you probably wrote this a few minutes ago, so hopefully you haven't missed too much, Andy. We've just been talking about the Big Garden Birdwatch and what I've been up to and answering a few of the questions along the way. So, but of course, for any of you that can't stick around for the remaining 20 minutes or whatever, then obviously this will be on YouTube. Hopefully you can, because I've got a bit of an announcement to make shortly. But yes, then obviously these will all be uploaded to YouTube after the live session has ended, of course. So you can watch again if there's anything you've missed. And obviously, if I do miss any questions, then apologies. I will come on to these and try and answer you individually afterwards as much as I can as well. Yes, so wondering if you have any tips on the edging of ponds to have a natural edge, no liner, but doesn't create a soak away as the water meets the soil/grass. So I'm guessing from that, Andy, you mean you want something that's going to just be the least absorbing as possible in terms of water retention, that capillary action, of course, just wicking the water out, which you're going to get naturally if you have any natural edges, either turf over the edges, or of course, if you then have, subsoil, if you create a pond like I do usually, subsoil up to the edges, and then of course plant into them. Those plants are going to be wicking the moisture out all year round, so they probably will need a top up, but generally speaking, the bigger the pond the better. So that hopefully will help you in that sense. But yeah, on the edging of ponds, natural edge, no liner, but doesn't create a soak away as water meets the soil grass. Yeah, I think really on that one, Andy, I mean, of course you can hide the liner with gravel, rocks, stones, which I'm sure you've seen in many of the videos I've made. So if you don't want to put plants right on the edge, you can put gravel and stone right the way around the edges for most of it. So it's easy access for animals in and out. Obviously, those of you that have seen my ponds will have seen I always do a cobble beach at one end, just to allow birds and mammals and everything else in, access in and out, so that they haven't got to sort of wade through vegetation to get to the edge of the water. And of course, with cats being the predators they are, they will hide in long grass and things, so birds will feel safer accessing the pond to bathe and to drink all year round if you've got an open area for them to get down into that bay. So yes, maybe try some stones and gravel. Hopefully on that one might help. Tracy's saying about the frogs still, and yeah, they are seem to be coming out earlier and earlier. It's climate change for you, I think. Oh yeah, so Annika has asked about breaking the ice on the pond. So again, yeah, absolutely, just warm water on that one, Annika, rather than using obviously breaking the ice itself. 90% native and planted a couple of whiskey barrel ponds. Do you happen to recommend any water plants native to the US that you may have experience with? Drop me a line on this one. There's a few that I'm thinking of. Can't remember for the life of me the names off the top of my head, but yeah, drop me an email if you want to drop it to my business business email, which is Hazelwood Landscapes @hotmail.com, HAZEL, or of course comment underneath and I'll send you a link, no problem at all, and I'll try and get a list to you on that one. Spencer said, will blue butterflies lay on greater bird's foot trefoils? Yes, so hopefully, I think I came on to that, but yeah, so the bird's foot trefoil and the greater bird's foot trefoil, I believe, the common blue butterfly, which is fairly widespread throughout the UK, will lay its eggs on this plant, so absolutely they will. And yeah, not too dissimilar. The chalk-hill blue, which is a rarer butterfly in the UK, will lay on horseshoe vetch, which, of course, I got the flowers muddled up a moment ago in the book. So, yes, they're very similar. The lotus, they're part of the lotus family, which will absolutely do wonders for the natural world. Julie has said, yes, Julie's one of my questions that I wanted to come on to, along with Helen had one from Twitter, which I'll come on to in a moment. But Julie has said, Julie Kenway, hi, we would like to create a mixed annual and perennial small wildflower meadow with a pond in the centre. What's the best way to start if by seed? Thanks. So I would say, get the ground turned over, get your pond in, obviously, first, Julie, and then get the ground turned over, rotavated around it, or just kind of a nice loose tilt. It doesn't have to be, turned over 3-4 inches deep, just as long as there's a nice, what's known as a tilth, so the soil is quite crumbly and friable, so that the seed can actually bed into that and get its roots down quite. There's good contact with the soil. That's the main thing for seed germination. And then I would sow it. I mean, you can sow in the spring. So you can sow in the end of March or in early April as a cut-off, probably, I would say, for a spring sowing. But I would say, you're better to have a September or October sowing if you can, just because that is the best time of year to be sowing a wildflower meadow. But I will be doing, I think, a full live session on making wildflower meadows in a bit of a timetable to come. So I'll keep you guys posted on that one, because I would like to go through some of the elements of the book. Wildlife ponds and native trees and shrubs, nectar borders, and of course wildflower meadows that I've just mentioned, along with all the other little bits and pieces of how you can help wildlife, bird boxes, feeding stations, all that sort of stuff. So I'll get a bit of a program together and let you guys know, of course, and obviously you can join me for those when we'll go into more detail. Yes, so Rebecca said, thanks, Joel. Never would have thought of wild strawberries. Yeah, of course. I mean, not many of us would. Wild strawberry, as I say, is a great one for the shade. Julie said about without staking flowers. Well, yes, I mean, it depends on the soil type again, Julie. So if it's very fertile, of course, you will get a few wildflowers sort of growing up to quite a height. I've planted knapweed, common knapweed or black knapweed in my borders before, and it's got to like almost 6 foot because it's been so fertile. So of course it does then flop over. But obviously if you can introduce a bit of sand or something, if it's very rich ground, then of course that will just bring the nutritional value down. And of course, hopefully the plants will then grow to a nice kind of 18 inches or 2 foot rather than 3 to 4 foot if it's obviously fertile. So the fertility will play a big part on that side of things. Amit says, will I have to introduce some prey species in my wildlife pond like cyclops, ostracods and daphne, or will they come by themselves? A lot will just turn up, Amit. I mean, I know you can add daphne to a pond, which is obviously a great food source, but the rest I would just let turn up naturally, I think, on that one, that's what I'd say. Wildlife Kate. Hi Kate, how are you doing? Kate has been on Spring Watch quite a lot with wildlife cameras and has been filming lots and lots of wildlife over the years, and also has a YouTube channel on the different bits and bobs that she's filmed. So yeah, nice to see you, Kate. Thanks for joining. My birds live on sunflower hearts, as do mine. Yeah, it's about the only thing I feed, apart from Niger as well, and a few peanuts. But of course, you won't want to be feeding peanuts to the birds as the spring comes, because the chicks can actually choke on bigger bits of peanut. So once you get to April time, and obviously the best way to feed birds in your garden is naturally. So if you plan your garden right, and if you plant the right trees and shrubs and everything else, obviously you can have all the insects for them in the summer months. Things such as hazel, guelder rose, goat willow, they're all going to be covered in caterpillars and other insects. which is, of course, a great food source. And caterpillars are the main food source for a lot of the chicks of the tit species, blue tit, grey tit, everything else. And they can eat hundreds of those a day. But natural food in the winter months is going to be the best thing you can do for providing food for birds in the garden. And obviously that's things like Gelderose, as I've said, which are lovely sort of almost red currant berry. Rowan, fantastic tree. Rowan is really good for all your thrush species, fieldfares, which I've done a video on recently, you may have seen. Redwings, song thrushes, blackbirds, waxwings, if you're fortunate enough. Many, many birds will eat the berries, of course. So that natural food source, but thinking all year round. So from your caterpillars to your other insects to berries to nuts, all that natural food is going to be the best way to feed the birds. So I would absolutely recommend that as option one. But of course, this time of year, it's nice to give them a bit of a boost like I do. Fat balls as well. Starlings in particular love fat balls. They'll come down quite happily to any amount of fat balls. They'll get through loads in a day if you get a flock of hungry ones, which they're never not hungry, to be fair. Donna said she found her first goldfinches today after putting out sunflower hearts. Brilliant. Good stuff, Donna. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant for them. Tracy's got some birdsfoot truffle in the garden. You'll no doubt see the benefits very soon then, Tracy. Tuscan 440R, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. How long would you wait before deciding on relocating your bird feeder if you have no takers? Pigeons only feeding 3 different types of food, introducing mix. Well, I mean, the main thing with feeding birds is, as you can see out here, I'll get my finger right, right in some cover. So, and I actually, just 10 minutes before I came live, there's a sparrowhawk came right down the middle of the garden, a male, and everything just went silent and shot into this big buddleia. So it really is a brilliant refuge for them. So don't go putting a bird feeder, obviously, in the middle of your lawn, because you just will not get takers. You might get a few, but of course they're so open to predation. And it's not just the UK, of course. You've got things like the sharp-shinned hawks and things like that in the States, and other hawks, of course, in the rest of Europe and Asia and everywhere else that will be adapted to just absolutely honing in on these birds that are vulnerable in the middle of a garden. So where you can, hang feeders in bushes, on the edge of bushes, or if you've got one of those poles, put it right next to some cover. So I would definitely recommend that every single time. It's the best thing you can do. So hope that helps, Keith. And again, try the sunflower hearts. Worldwide they'll be good for, I'm sure, a load of species. I've seen them in the States for a lot of sort of dark-eyed juncos, cardinals, all that sort of thing. So yeah, very good food worldwide, sunflower hearts. Keith said, I love my butterflies too. Good man, Keith. I try to discover a species I haven't seen before each year. I'm hoping to find a rare heath fritillary this year in woods near Canterbury when we get to warm weather. Well, Keith, if you get in touch, I just so happen to live about 5 minutes drive from probably the best heath fritillary site. You did say heath fritillary, didn't you? Yes, you did. Heath fritillary site in Essex, and one of the best in the UK, I think. I actually had about 100 individuals on a transect 2 years ago. So yeah, if you fancy a day trip there when obviously COVID permits, then do get in touch. I'll be happy to show you them because they are incredible. Fantastic little, obviously, butterflies. And I try too. It's so hard with work nowadays, and with the way the YouTube channel is going and everything else that's going on, for me to actually get a day to walk around and just enjoy butterflies, which is, of course, a huge passion of mine, as you might have guessed. So and to do this, I try and obviously see, like you've said, I make the most of when I'm in a certain area of the country and maybe go and take an excursion to see a butterfly I haven't seen before. There's many I haven't seen of the 58 species that are resident in the UK. I haven't seen high brown fritillary, Adonis blue, a couple of others, but yeah, not too many left now. But yeah, I would be happy to show you those, Keith, if you like. Marek says it's great to listen to you whilst doing other stuff. Doing other stuff, Marek? Should have your full attention. I'm joking. Good. Well, at least I can provide some background information and entertainment for you, hopefully. Eric said, do you have any experience of using other species than yellow rattle to suppress grasses in a meadow? for example, as eyebright, velvet bells, and common cowweed. So where's the irony? There's the irony right there. Cowweed, common cowweed, is of course the larval food plant of the heath fritillary that I've just been talking about. But I've not used it in a woodland setting, in a meadow setting before, because they are, generally speaking, an annual that is, well, in the UK, in my experience anyway, that's found throughout woodland clearings throughout the UK. And of course, the heath fritillary kind of is very sedentary, but it moves around woodlands where there are areas of coppice that, and that's how they are managed for these days, is rare butterfly. Coppice management throughout woodlands creates these open patches of ground where the cowweed then sort of moves in, and of course then the butterflies move in with it. So that's how they manage for them. Slight tangent, but no, I've not tried. So it'd be interesting to see. Eyebright as well. Again, I've seen eyebright, but not use it much in a meadow setting. Clive's got all his sunflowers and meadowflower seeds ready with extra amount of lady smock to be added. Good man. Yep, lady smock, cracking little wildflower. Of course, loves damp conditions as well. So, yes, if you can put it in some damp and shade, it'll do well in shade as well, Clive. So, no problem at all. Wildlife cake, yes, of course. Trichomoniasis, that's it, is the disease that we were talking about, the greenfinches and the chaffinches that have been hit with. Yes, finches species, but surprisingly not so much the goldfinches. They've done very well. They have prospered, I've found, in the last few years. Tell me if you found the same, certainly. Yes, so Don has said, I plant sacrificial veg outside the veggie patch to help the bugs and beasties. Good for you, Donna. Yeah, like I said, with the large whites decimating my Brussels sprouts, that was, kind of the intention. So Tilak Gurung has said, do you leave the bird feeder on the night? I always put them in the shed when it's dark and put them back in the morning. You can do. I mean, it depends if, of course, they're going to be tampered with by anything else. Tilak, I don't know whether that would be, squirrels where you are, or mice, or other mammals maybe, but I just leave mine out generally, and obviously just keep them cleaned, as we said earlier. Keep cleaning them to make sure you haven't got any disease or infection spreading through the food. I would certainly do that. Concrete 2010 said, I placed 2 bee insect hotels last year. Any tips on when to prepare them for the new year? Yeah, so you are supposed to clean them out, of course, but obviously it's difficult because you have a lot overwintering now inside those tunnels, if you like. So you don't want to disturb them, but equally you then have the early ones coming in as well. So it might be a fine line between just noticing when the existing ones hatch before any new ones are laid, and just sort of getting in then. That's what I would probably recommend on that one, because of course, yes, it is important to clean out even bug hotels so that you don't risk any sort of pathogens getting in and spreading disease that way. Amida said, how can I create a bee and butterfly banquet in full shade? Well, Amid, I would have to do a bit of investigating into that, and to what, of course, Amid is in Kashmir, so a beautiful part of the world, and obviously a very different sort of palette of plants, if you like. So I'll have a look into that for you, Amid. Let me make a note of that, and then I can send you a few recommendations as to what will grow well in shade. But I would say that shade plants over here, obviously, if any of you are looking to plant plants in the shade, like we had earlier with the wild strawberry from Rebecca's comment, you can plant things such as red campion, which is a really, 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 really good wildflower. One of my favorites, and it just almost has a double flush of flowers. Things like foxgloves as well, great for bees. And you've also got things like hellebores, pulmonaria is really good. Nettle leaf bellflower, gorgeous looking plant. Lots and lots. Again, another slight plug for the book. Sorry, guys. There's a full list in the back of the book. But there's just a few off the top of my head there anyway. So let's have a look. Wildlife cake. Oh, here we go. I'm about to develop a shaded area under a very large oak. I'm going to do a small path, log piles, etc. But what other wildlife-friendly species could you recommend that will cope with this shade? Well, hopefully I've just mentioned a few, Kate. And you've got the book. Perfect. Well, say no more then. And that was quick if you've ordered it since the start of the live broadcast. Very good, Amazon, aren't they? No, well, hopefully, yeah. You'll see in the back of the book, Kate, there's loads of species in there. I can't remember half of them now. Now you put me on the spot, but I've named just a few. But red campion is really such a fantastic one, obviously. And of course, don't forget early flowering nectar as well. So your snowdrops, your aconites, your bluebells, all those sort of spring bulbs, which of course are going to be flowering before the canopy of any trees are coming into leaf, which of course is a vital food source and nectar source as well for so many insects we can't even begin to imagine. Adityan Girish has said, hello, nice to see you. Thank you for joining. Spencer, is hawthorn deer resistant? Sadly not, Spencer. If you mean in terms of boundary, then I've seen them jump over 6-foot hedges, so not in that sense. I'm assuming you mean the leaves, but they will eat of hawthorn. And actually, you can actually eat the leaves yourselves in spring when they are fresh off hawthorn. I've done it myself and I'm still standing. So yeah, you can eat hawthorn leaves when they are fresh in the spring. I'm not saying we all need to go out and start stripping the leaves off the shrubs in the countryside, but you can do. Same as garlic mustard, the food plant of the larval food plant of the orange tip butterfly. I promise I won't mention it again today. Oh, here we go. Now there's a comment if ever I saw one. Tracy has said, I've got an older buckthorn in a pot as garden space is getting limited, but if I do plant it, can I cut it back reasonably hard to hedge size? Absolutely, Tracy. Now, older buckthorn and buckthorn are the two larval food plants of the brimstone butterfly. If any of you in the UK or Europe have seen that fantastic, vivid sulphur flash of yellow-green down a country lane in the springtime, or zipping through your garden, nectaring on some bluebells, or red campion again, then that of course is the brimstone butterfly, and the males emerge 2 weeks before the females. And yeah, they are one of my favorite butterflies, a real harbinger of spring, along with the good old orange tip. But the brimstones, yes, so they lay on the buckthorn or older buckthorn, depending on your soil type. Older buckthorn prefers it wet, and I try and remember it as older likes it. The older buckthorn likes it wet, the same as older as in the tree. So, which of course you often find along rivers. Whereas the common buckthorn prefers more calcareous soils, and by that I mean obviously stony ground, limestone, chalk, that sort of thing. So yes, they will do well on there, no problem at all. But yeah, you can cut them back, Tracy, as hard as you like. They will have no problem coming back. No problem. Helen said, hello, I'm Helen from the Twitter. Hello, Helen from the Twitter. I will answer your question now. Let me just bring it up. I came prepared. So Helen had said, what can I do with a gravel drive to make it less sterile and provide a corridor to the back garden for wildlife? Very good question, Helen. And I would sow some seeds through it. So just along the margins and along the edges, things such as Viper's bugloss, which is a phenomenal plant for bees. It really is. Obviously, things like purple toadflax should crop up, depending on where you are in the country. Purple toadflax should come in, and also things like foxgloves as well will grow fine. Bird's foot trefoil, and if you can get the seeds and just sprinkle them along the edges, you might get away with doing it in March. You might get a few things pop up. If not, do it in the autumn time. But yeah, certainly try and soften those edges with a few plants. And if you've got a copy of the book, or if you happen to get one, then if you go to like the chalky, stony section where it describes and a lot of wildflowers, of course, have adapted to grow on stony ground to not be bullied out by other species such as nettles, thistles, and docks in more fertile ground. So that's why, we have things like orchids cropping up in lovely stony patches around the countryside. Then yes, that's what I would recommend is going to that section of the book and having a look. But like I say, so bird's foot trefoil, Viper's bugloss, and many other plants as well, things like horseshoe vetch, and of course things like primroses will grow in drives. They're pretty tough and hardy. Primrose is a great plant, obviously, of course, for a shady woodland area for the spring, which will be out in another month or so's time. Let's have a look what's happened. So we've got Sophie, who said, what would you recommend to plant under a big conifer where gold crests have nested? Oh, look at you, Sophie. Dry and direct sun in summer. Currently have iris reticulata, periwinkle, ivy for summer, autumn wildlife benefit. Okay, so dry and direct sun in summer under a big conifer is very restrictive. Under a conifer, they are just moisture sappers, which you'll no doubt know. But wild strawberry, again, I know I go on about it, but great for ground cover. Self-heal should be okay as well. And the glad and the stinking iris, which you've mentioned, is obviously very good, which is fantastic. Forgive me on that one. I think it's stinking iris, the iris reticulata. Keith said, can I take, so hopefully that helps, Sophie, by the way. Keith said, can I take cuttings from wild shrubs and grow them on? I obviously wouldn't take wildflowers from wild. You can, Keith, of course. I would just, take some, in the summertime, obviously summer cuttings are going to be as good as anything if you can get them back quick enough before they dry out. Amelia said, how can industrial lawns in public places be modified for the benefit of nature? I reckon this could be a great idea. Well, yeah. I'm a big advocate. I'm hopefully working a lot more closely with Plant Life, a charity in the UK this year, to try and promote wildflower meadows and verge management. A few of our remaining wildflower meadows are just down to verges now throughout the UK because it's so intensively farmed. So yes, I would say the best thing is to obviously, persuade your councils not to mow as often, just simply not mowing as often. Quite often the wildflowers will be there. They just won't have had a chance to flower because they're mown so regularly. So, hopefully you can get in touch with your local council meet and see if they might change some mowing regimes for you. Keith said, Adonis blues in my neck of the woods. Stop it, Keith. There's no need to show off. Langdon Cliffs between Dover and Deal. Lovely. Well, maybe we can do a swap, Keith. I'll show you Heath and you can show me some Adonis. How about that? Even some long-tail blues. Wow. And I assume that's November time when they come over. Obviously the numbers build and just a few come over from the channel, across the channel, should I say. And chalk-hill blues as well, another nice one. Garden and aquatic info, how we care tuberose plant in winter. Drop me a line on that one. I'm not quite sure which rows you mean, of course, but yeah, I'll have a look at that for you, no problem. Clive said, thanks for that, Joel. Yeah, crikey, an hour and 10. Well, guys, yeah, no, I suppose we ought to probably think about wrapping things up. And before we go, I have a couple of things to say to you guys. So starting from 2 weeks' time, I'm very pleased to say that I will be starting some live interviews with what I would class as conservation heroes. And that is mostly pretty much all of you out there. So I can't feature you all, obviously, at the same time. But what I'm trying to do, and please let me know if you know of anybody, even yourself, if you've got a case study of a garden that you're making or you have made or you're planning to make, and some of the, but particularly some of the really nice stories that people have gone to, the lengths people have gone to rewild areas. And the gentleman that I shall be interviewing in 2 weeks' time on the 14th of February is Krishna from India, and he bought 15 acres of land many years ago, and he's rewilded it purely to safeguard some of the indigenous species around him. So absolutely incredible story. He's built this hut there. He's, him and his friends have actually gone in and just made sure that so little was done, that wildlife is moving back into the area at an alarming rate, and it's just almost like a mini nature reserve. So I'm going to have him on the show for a little while where we can chat about everything he's done to encourage wildlife. And of course, I want to hear from you guys. If you've got a story, if you know someone with a fantastic story about how they've helped wildlife in their local area, it doesn't matter where you are around the world, I want to hear it. And I'm sure you guys do as well. And obviously these shows are for you. They're not for me. I'm as much as I learn from them, and it's lovely to see you all on there. The aim of these shows is to try and give you as much inspiration and advice as possible to help create as many habitats around the world. So, see it as your own. If you have any ideas as to how you think the show could be improved, what you think I could start doing, which would really interest you and help you guys, I think that would be fantastic. So do get in touch, and obviously I'm keen to hear about any ideas you've got. So either drop some comments below this if you're watching this after this live show, or get in touch. My email is Hazelwood Landscapes, Hazel woodlandscapes @hotmail.com, or of course contact me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, any of the usual streams, and I will of course be happy to have a chat with you about how we can move forwards with this. And also I will say that not in 2 weeks' time, but a little later on in the year, I will have another very special friend from India Javed, who has joined today, Curio Critters, and he was responsible for, wait for it, finding, I know you said inventing then, not inventing, finding the sorting hat spider. Now, for those of you that are Harry Potter fans, you will know what the sorting hat is, and he's actually named a spider after the sorting hat spider, an uncanny resemblance to the sorting hat. It's fantastic. So go and Google it after you've watched this if you get the chance. It's brilliant. So he'll be on the show as well, talking about that and the many. He's an absolute spider expert. So yeah, quite an amazing story that is, about how he discovered that in India and named it after J.K. Rowling's sorting hat, of course. So yeah, no, and I think I'll just catch up if anybody's had any last comments to say. Yeah, no, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah, so there's Krishna. Obviously, give him a follow, and I'll be sharing his story and his wildlife journey over the last 10 to 15 years in 2 weeks' time. Yes, so thank you so much, guys. I have thoroughly enjoyed today. Hopefully, you've seen a bit of wildlife. If you missed a squirrel earlier, go and watch this back. I don't know, it's probably half an hour ago now. There was a squirrel, I promise you, running across this chair here, along with a few of the birds. So hopefully I brought a bit of wildlife to you today as well. Do keep in touch via the usual streams, obviously on YouTube, on Twitter and Instagram are the main ones. And of course, I will be posting more videos to come very shortly of some of the projects that I've been working on over the last 5, 10, 15 years, and sharing my experiences with you guys. So thank you so much. Do leave me some comments. As I say, keep in touch, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time, same time, 3 p.m. GMT on Sunday, the 14th of February. Let's have a Valentine's Day special, shall we? And get my good friend in from India and have a fantastic chat about everything to do with wildlife and wildlife gardening. So thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you soon.